Fuego Pizza presents SDP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
Let's go!
It is I guess this is our last week before summer vacation.
Sort of. As much summer vacation as we can have, I guess, in the middle of all this.
So here's what's going to happen. If you missed it at the the end of last episode, this is our last 2-week episode until we think early August. We're pretty sure the NHL and the NBA are going to come back at the same time. We know the NBA will be back July 31st. I would assume the NHL is going to be back within a week of that. We don't know if we were ever going to get the MLB again, but thankfully we're not an MLB podcast. Can you imagine if we were?
Their players union and the owners, they just absolutely hate each other.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It's an unbelievable.
It's okay, though, because it's never gotten in the way of a season before.
No, never.
Always.
But you know what? It's gotten in the way less than the NHL and its players union. Let's just put it that way.
That's true.
So essentially, we just decided that, there's not a lot of new content. There's no trades, no free agency. There's no games. And
we have some stuff, man. We have some
stuff, but it's like a little bit like let's save the quality and over quantity. And also, to be quite frank, it's been a real grind. We're all exhausted, and I think we want to be geared up and ready to go for when this 24 team bonanza hits us. And so I think that it kind of makes sense. There will be some weeks off in there as well for all three of us. I'm not really sure if we're going to do shows on certain weeks or if we're just going to rotate them. We'll let you know. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, it's nice to have you here. And unfortunately, we got to start the show with something that's pretty serious. So there was a guy who did animations for us who he basically just reached out to us, I believe, one day, Steve, if I'm right. And I don't
even remember.
He animated the barbecue versus meeting thing that 1 minute clip that we all put up on Instagram. His name's Evan Scott Huber, and it was really well done. And It was very funny. And we thought, oh my God, look at how talented this guy is. And it's, it wouldn't be the first time that we've spotlighted somebody that listened to the show, because that's just sort of we're always sort of amazed by the diversity of talents that we have, people who are lawyers, people who are doctors, people who are, an animator.
Yeah.
And we thought
this
it was really cool.
It's our show, but it's also the listener show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because of how much
community
interaction we have and how passionate people are about the show, that it's a community show.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so we gave him shout outs and stuff and helped him fundraise through coffee. He used to do that sort of thing. But, I think we sort of, I haven't talked to him in well over a year, but from what our understanding is, and just to get to this as quickly as we possibly can, he was DMing women within the hockey Twitter community who liked his work, or who he followed or whatever. They would follow him, he would follow them back, or vice versa. And then he would talk to them, feign being a nice guy, and then ask them to send him pictures of them in high heels or their bare feet, and various other requests. Now, it's important that you know that he had 5 Twitter accounts. So this may not have come from his main Twitter account, which was his animation one. He also had a band Twitter account. He had 2 others, and I forget what they were. But
YouTube
there were
account, a Facebook account.
Yeah. But on Twitter, he had 5 different accounts.
Oh, yeah.
So, under the auspices of these are just different branding and this is my personal or whatever. And I think a few months ago, from what I can remember, from what I've seen online, he started tweeting about how people were blocking him and he's just a nice guy and how could this happen? And then I guess at the beginning of this week, somebody tweeted out the fact that they used ESH, Evan Scott Huber, as as his name, and how many of you have been victimized by that. And I think it was something near 40 people. And so it was a lot. And so we talked about, Jesse, you mentioned the community part of our show. And frankly, we didn't know about this until it came out, until people started posting their DMs. I know one of our followers since the beginning of time, Leah Flame was the one that was one of the major writers of these tweets and coming out with this sort of stuff. One of the things that we've prided ourselves on in the community and is that, it's community supported, community based, and we're good to each other here. And this is one of those things where we didn't know what was happening. But we are terribly sorry to everybody who was affected. There's just no other way to say it. I mean, it's an awful thing. And I feel bad for anybody that felt uncomfortable, who, was just trying to be kind to somebody online, cause that's really what we've tried to do here is sort of pull in people that are also kind. Maybe we have divergent opinions and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, we can all say, oh, at least I can respect that person. And Evan, for his part, I think tried to get out in front of it on Monday night and tweeted, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, as a prominent white man on Twitter, which I thought was an interesting choice of phrase, to be quite frank with you. He admitted to doing all of these things to women as young as 18 years old.
Those are his words.
Those are his words. Yeah. There are rumors, and I've read tweets that maybe there were people who were younger than that. If you were affected by this, we're so sorry. And it's not something that we would have known about. But all the same,
to everybody who has a story, we believe you, and we're sorry, and we've taken down as much of his stuff that we were involved in as we can find.
Yes, it does go back a little bit to a couple of years, and I'm just.
I think there was only one thing on our YouTube channel. I couldn't find one on mine. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I did a search on both of the podcast channel and your channel, and I pulled down everything I could just out of respect for the victims.
Yeah, it might have just been the podcast account. I took it off my Instagram as well, and I got to redo the intro from scratch because I didn't save the edit file. Yeah, so we can't. I won't have his stuff in my stuff.
So I want to read you. Katie at Dame of Scones on Twitter, because she, like us, was a believer and thought, well, here's this talented guy, and here, why don't I try to help him out? So I'm going to read what she had to say, because I think she says it better than anybody else could say it. She said, a quick thread to start off the morning. Since I missed a lot while I was asleep and teaching, and then I will resume my regularly scheduled programming of jersey drawing. Warning, discussion of harassment, abuse, predatory behavior. First, I'll start out by bringing anyone out of the loop into it. Last night, many people on Hockey Twitter came forward to share their DMs and instances of Evan harassing them, coming on to them, asking them to participate in his fetish without disclosing what it was. If you require direction to some of the threads about it, I can point you there, or you can just search his name or handle on here, and I imagine it'll pop up. And by the way, it does. I'm also sure many of you know that Evan and I were friends. I met up with him. My husband and I bought him dinner. We donated hundreds of dollars to him through his computer fundraiser, and I promoted his work relentlessly because I believed he was incredibly talented. I know that my name is probably intertwined with his to some of you, so I feel the need to make this absolutely crystal clear. I have no tolerance for abusers or people with power or influence in a niche social circle who take advantage of, abuse, harass, harm anyone. And that is no different if the person was a friend or someone I supported. I'm sorry to any of you that I led you to Evan. Like most, I thought that any off or kind of creepy messages were just the internet being a barrier. To everyone sharing their DMs, I see you and I'm sorry. Thank you for calling him out. To everyone who isn't comfortable doing so, including myself, I see you and I'm with you. The things that happened to you and me, or the things that made you or me uncomfortable, are no less valid because we don't want to post about them publicly yet. My DMs are always open to you, although I wish I had a better way to say that given the context of this conversation. Anyway, this is the end of the thread. I'm going to nest this whole thing with another tweet below to make sure anybody who's concerned about it and not seeing the content of this thread can avoid it. Now, I will also want to quickly mention a couple things that she goes into, because she said she was going to end the thread, but then messaged about getting a refund on GoFundMe because I had Evan muted, frankly. I didn't know this because
I thought about it.
There are people that I follow that I find sometimes are just trying to get attention. And Evan was one of those people. And so I didn't want to.
This contest. Like, how many frigging contests are there in the world?
So I didn't know any of this was going on. And I maybe should pay more attention to the people that I mute because you don't see this. So I guess he had some sort of computer thing where he tried to fundraise for a new animation computer. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
And it's a rough understanding. If it's incorrect, please hit me up. Like I don't mind. But
Steve, you followed that storyline pretty closely, so you could explain that.
No, not really closely, but I did see him trying to get money for it. And, I'm going to use this computer for animation and everything. And, I was kind of getting pissed off with it because he really only messaged when he kind of wanted something.
He messaged you.
Yeah. And I'm starting to, I'm suspicious that he dangled the carrot of, I'm going to make the Smart Insider Man video for so long. And I wonder if that was part of it.
Yeah. He said for 2 years he was going to do that.
Yeah. Here it comes. Here it comes.
We had people donate money to him because of that.
At my recommendation.
And mine.
Yeah. All of ours.
And I gave him some money for that. And we spoke about, I was going to have him illustrate a book idea I had, and he never got back to me for that either. So again, it was just I don't know. I'm suspicious that it was a carrot. Being dangled for everything. And basically it sounds like this person and several others, maybe myself, I can't remember, gave him money for this thing that, did he ever buy it? Is he going to use it? I have no idea. Did he use the money for something else? I don't know.
Katie went to, and this is why I just want to read these last two tweets because I think it's important if you were part of donating to this. So there was a GoFundMe, and she said, sorry, I need to add one more thing. If you also donated to the GoFundMe, you can request a refund of your contribution through GoFundMe. I have no idea if it'll work, but I went ahead and submitted mine, and she put hers out. Recent tweets on other accounts suggest that he was contacting numerous women and offering to pay for things and send them money for pairs of shoes. So while I previously just counted the money as gone, now I think I would like it back to donate elsewhere. So it's possible that he could have been soliciting this money to pay for things like that. And I mean, so Katie knows it better than we do. And I have to say that, when it comes to what she says about tolerance for abusers, such as this guy, I mean, I don't think you can say it any better. So Katie, I hope you don't mind us jumping on the back of this, but I wholeheartedly echo her statement, and I will be posting her thread on my Twitter account. The reason we haven't said anything is because we felt like it was the smart thing to do to just talk about it on the show. But let me read this one more time.
Well, in Twitter, sorry, Adam, before you continue, Twitter is very chaotic. And what I kept seeing at the bottom of almost every Evan post is what happened. And one tweet was not enough.
Yep.
To explain what happened. And I was asked to say my own thing, and I just knew the impending what happened was going to come in. And I didn't even fully understand what happened until
there's plenty of people
this morning.
There's plenty of people listening to this show who have no idea who this guy is.
Right.
Right. And you're confused as hell right now.
Yeah. Well, that's why I tried to give you some context about this animation. And again, that's what it is, right? Sometimes I think he might've had 2,500 followers. That's not a lot of people. And it's enough. It's enough, obviously. But what I'm saying is that this is not like some gigantic animator from a massive studio that's come down. This is some guy in his room. And what Katie had to say, I have no tolerance for abusers or people with power or influence in a niche social circle, which I think identifies him perfectly, who take advantage of, abuse, harm, or harass anyone. And that is no different if the person was a friend or someone I supported. I'm sorry to any of you that I led to Evan. She mentions again, Steve, and you talked about this, some of the DMs that you got, not pertaining to the discussion that we've had where he's, talking to women, but every time he DM'd, it was something he needed. And Katie said, like most, I thought any off or kind of creepy messages were just the internet being a barrier. And I know what she's talking about there. Sometimes tone gets lost on the internet, right? You have to really watch what you write. To everyone sharing their DMs, I see you and I'm sorry. Thank you for calling him out. To everyone who isn't comfortable doing so, including myself, I see you and I'm with you. Now, I wonder, that tweet tells me that Katie was also the victim of this as well. And if that's the case, Katie, I'm sorry to you directly as well. So, we figured best to address the situation. And I think for us, it's a learning experience beyond the aggression itself. There's a trust thing that, for me anyway, I can only speak for myself here, that goes away. I have a harder time trusting strangers. And it seems like a stupid thing to say, right? Like, but you think that these people you're in a community with, and we were. Well,
and even people you've met. I've met him.
Yeah. Oh, you've met him. I
met him in Washington last year.
So, you want to assume the best of everybody. And I think there's a responsibility we carry with making sure that the people we give a platform to are good people.
I feel a tad bit of shame here for pointing people towards his work and that leading to people being abused.
Yeah.
And I hope those victims, if they need the help, that they do reach out and talk to someone about it if that's what they feel they need to do.
Yeah. And our DMs are open as well. Or my DMs are open, and I know there's ways to reach Jesse and Steve. But beyond that, it shakes my ability to just retweet somebody in the same way. And and I mean that. I think it's sort of one of those things where it seems stupid, but it's sort of like, for us, it was like the joy of this guy creating this amazing piece of this amazing video for us out of the kindness of his heart, and that's what we took it as. And we thought, well, here's a independent animator. Why wouldn't you want to help him?
Of course.
Why wouldn't you want? Even if he ends up working for a big studio someday, wouldn't it be cool if we could help get him there? Help get him some exposure. So for that part of it, it's really tough. And again, let me just say that we're so sorry for anybody that we led to Evan, and we're so sorry to anybody that felt victimized by him and was victimized by him. It's something that I honestly can tell you, I did not know until this week, but now that I do, obviously, I mean, he's deleted all of his accounts. I believe his web domain was somebody in the community had the access to it and has changed his web domain as well. He's deleted all of his accounts except for, I think, his band account. His videos are all archived on YouTube, but the channel is still there. And I don't know what else to say beyond we're truly sorry that this happened. And we're truly sorry that we had no idea.
Yeah.
You don't know who someone is in the dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of the Sophie Merckx situation from years and years ago.
So explain this one, because there was a few people you mentioned that I think there are situations people forgot.
Well, yeah. So there were a number of accounts from, I don't remember exactly how many years ago. I think it was roughly when the podcast came out. The one it reminded me of a lot was Steve Lepore. And, basically, again, sort of just being creepy, pictures and DMs, stuff like that.
And who is that?
I forget who he used to write for.
Oh, so
but he was a hockey writer.
A blogger?
Yeah. But the Sophie Merckx situation is a fascinating case study that I wanted to upload to the YouTube channel soon, because I reference it every now and then, and newer listeners will have no idea because it's from an episode from 7 years ago. But basically, the sleuthing of Sarah Connors discovered that this network of women in hockey Twitter were actually one guy named Kyle from Waterloo.
Who
actually got a bunch of people to tell him a bunch of things, right? Private information that they thought they were telling to a friend, a confidant, right? And we used to have shirts with like different podcast catchphrases on it, and little slogans and references, and one was Angry Swedish Listener. And Angry Swedish Listener was one of the fake women that Kyle portrayed. Like, that's how deeply this guy infiltrated. And again, we don't know. We didn't know. How could you? So, like you said, to everyone who was victimized in all this, we hear you, we believe you, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. So with that, I think we got to take a bit of a turn. If you have any questions, by the way, or you want to message us about this, feel free, by the way. I just, thought you should DMs, Instagram, whatever you want to do. We're open.
Is there a way to not aggressively swerve out of this?
No. I mean,
no.
When I was in like news television, it's a hard right. It's those tough, where you go from stories. Like, I remember, I think when David Bowie died, I remember having to do the entertainment story. It was very sad. And then when Prince died too, it was like it was pretty close to each other. And then teasing a home and garden segment coming up after the break.
Oh my God.
Coming after the break, Frankie Flowers has got your, what you do with your gardenias. And Kevin Frankish, the guy that was the host of the show at the time, did a really good job. He said, listen, we're going to have to take a hard right here. And he would just say that to the camera, like, we're going to have to take a hard right. That's the reality. Coming up next, we've got, and God bless him, it was not an easy, that's not easy. This is one of those things where we got to take a hard right turn. Figured we would talk about this right away because it's the most important thing on the schedule today. Now,
to help you transition, Adam, you just reminded me. Remember when you invited me on to Breakfast Television to talk about hockey, and I ended up being in a segment about a tiger at the zoo?
What was that about? The Bowmanville Zoo?
No, that was so I remember that story. But no, this was, I was on to talk about like a playoff preview or something. But there was a story that was local to Toronto of this video went viral of someone dropped their hat in the tiger enclosure at the Toronto Zoo. And so the Toronto Zoo, there's where the people are, there's the holy smokes don't go here space, and then there's the cage separating you from the tiger. So it's supposed to be 2 layers of separation from the wild animal. Mm-hmm. This lady drops her hat in the what do you call it, ditch, I guess, and she just climbs down and goes and gets it.
I don't even remember that. Like, I can't remember anything from that time ever.
Yeah, and that was going around, and it was one of the big stories on your show that day. And I remember I was just sort of standing there in the background eating a muffin, waiting for gotta love breakfast TV, waiting to talk about hockey. And I'm just talking to people. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to work at the zoo. People do stupid crap like that all the time. And someone overheard me and they went, you used to work at the zoo? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And stuff like this happen all the time. Like, you've seen this happen? Yeah, of course. All right, we're having you on. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
and so Dina DePugliese had to like introduce me like, hi, we have Steve on to talk about the Leafs. But first, he's going to talk about the crazy tiger person. And basically, I was the Tiger King before Tiger King.
Yeah. That show is sort of like they pull on anyone who's got any sort of information pertaining to each story. And that's what I loved about that show. It's like, it doesn't matter if you are on camera, if you're a news producer, if you're running cable, if you're in the control room, it does not matter. If you have a story that helps their story, that makes it better, the whole team participates. And it really created a great community there. Like, it was such a fun show to be on because of things like that. There was just always somebody getting pulled on for something.
And Dina,
that's right.
Coming in like a car alarm at 6 a.m. Hey, everybody!
Dina Pugliese, if you're from Toronto or the GTA, just so you know, she has as much energy off camera as she does on, and is genuinely one of the sunniest people in the world. She's just so awesome. One of those people you feed off that energy. She's amazing. So
yeah, that's
Dina.
Not fake. That's not put on.
No, that's real. That's natural. You can't fake that kind of energy.
No.
So the Leafs started going to practice this week, as did many NHL teams. I believe the Oilers are up in there too.
Yep.
Saw Marchand and Bergeron on the ice.
There you go.
That hurt my feelings. Yep.
Steve's not back on the ice though, because
no, he's not.
Even though he hopes to be and was about to buy rollerblades and then didn't.
I did buy rollerblades. They said they had them in stock and then they canceled them. They canceled my shipment. I'm pissed.
You did try to buy them?
I did. No. So I didn't. So, okay, I'll just say, I tried to buy Mars blades that are like 3 times as much, like 2.5 times as much.
$1,000. Yeah.
No, they're not $1,000.
They're
a lot of money, though.
Yeah.
They're not going to arrive till August. And so I got this other one, and they said they had them in store, and it's 2 weeks later. I'm like, where the hell are my rollerblades? And then they canceled them because they didn't have them. I'm sad. I want a rollerblade. Shut up. It's making a comeback, Jesse. What is it? Get that smile off your face, Jesse. They're coming back.
You're never going to rollerblade.
You're not going to rollerblade.
Well, not anymore.
You're going to do it once, maybe, if you get them, and that'll be it.
Actually.
You're going to rollerblade right over your fingers. I'm going to drop something on the ground for you to pick up.
No, keep going.
Right over your fingers.
Let's talk about the hockey ice.
Okay, all right. Well, I think there was some. I mean, it's been a while. I think for sports reporters, you could see the absolute glee. I loved Kristen Shilton's tweet yesterday about like I was almost tweeting line combinations today. It was fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, and you feel like this is her and like Jonah Siegel and the people that follow the team every day. Luke Fox. They have to. Like, you think that there's nothing going on in hockey. Imagine having to produce content for a team to follow. And they have to. So you could see that the excitement's building, although we still don't know when it's going to come back. And, John Tavares and Austin Matthews, I think Ilya Mikheyev was on the ice as well.
Yep.
But one of the headlines that came out, and we got to call out our company here a little bit here, Jesse. But
Who's our?
So Bell Media, TSN. TSN, just there's glee, right? It's like, put it up. It's sports. We got something. It's the Leafs. And they had a 3-minute video about how John Tavares tapes his stick at home to save time before he goes to the rink.
You guys, I got no problem with this.
No problem with it.
No?
I think
no, that's a story.
I think right now a story is a story, and that's a story.
Yeah. Well, and I heard a clip from him on the radio this morning talking about his excitement, and his excitement level for John Tavares is pretty ballistic. But for us, it's like, it's just really good to get back at the rink and really miss the guys. And like, it was just so boring.
I tape my sticks at home. They're, you have to understand they're left-handed sticks. I have them. I have to. I don't know. You can't tape a stick unless you have.
John,
them.
do you buy them, or do you have them shipped to your house, or how does that work?
Well, no, I have them shipped to my house for sure. I don't know. I play for the Leafs. I don't know.
What room do you keep them in? Is there a specific room, specific reason?
I generally I keep them in the garage. I keep them in the garage. But like, sometimes I'll tape them in the living room because there's a couch. Hopefully my wife's not home. Don't want her to see me with the sticks.
Do you watch any TV, John? While when you're sitting on the couch and you're taping your stick, do you have like a show that you like to watch, like a pre-practice ritual show?
Yeah, there's I really like watching Planet Earth. You know that part where they show the mushroom growing, but they speed it up. Yeah, I like to slow it down. I like to watch it in real time.
John, Jesse here from Leafs Dinner on TSN 1050.
There you go.
I'm just wondering, how do you get the sticks from your house to the arena?
Usually in my car. I put them in. I like to put them in, in the back, kind of diagonal. I don't want them to obscure. You have
John,
to see
what color's your car, John?
Beige.
Well, I think we found something we need to do again.
Oh my God.
So anyway, John Tavares, very exciting. And what I loved is, Old Faithful, the Danny Heatley burner account, the at Dan Heater 15, 50 and 07, tweeted when the TSN headline came up. It said, John Tavares likes to, tape his stick at home. He just wrote, "Okay, thanks."
Oh my God.
It was great. But you know what? I don't mind watching the 3.5-minute video with a little bit of pre-roll. Please let me just hear these guys talk or do something. This is great. I don't care. And I think, Steve, you were right. It's hockey. It's anything. Jesse said that.
It felt good. It felt like they were back a little,
Back a little. But no coaches are allowed to be there, right? I think it's a limit on for some reason they said no coaches. And they didn't explain that. Yeah. What's that?
It's like a limit on everything. I don't even know if the players were able to be that close to each other. I think it depended on the rink you were in.
I think
right. Can you pass to guys? Can you touch the same puck? What's the rule?
If you're 10 people or under, though, which is the rule now, or will be on Friday, I think you should be fine, right? Maybe it's an NHLPA thing. It could be a union thing. They're not getting paid to be there. It's an unofficial practice. Why would there be a coach? Maybe there's something with that.
There's a lot of confusion right now. And in Ontario, for example, a couple of days ago, they had some sort of announcement. And after the announcement, which is supposed to be a conveying of information, people are tweeting at all these reporters who are tweeting out the information going, yes, can you explain what that means?
Yeah.
Can you explain what any of this means?
Right. Well, so in Ontario, too, they've opened things by region, which makes sense. So all the major regions with any sort of major population, which is the southern part of Ontario, and I think a third of the country lives in southern Ontario. None of them can open for stage 2 yet. Everybody else can.
Because North Bay isn't the same as Burlington.
It's not.
No,
and it's the right
different places.
It's the right thing. So basically from Niagara all the way over to Durham region, basically, you can't you can't get a tattoo, go to a salon, get your hair cut, any of that stuff. However, there's nothing preventing you from going to any of these other areas, like an hour outside of town, and getting them for yourself. It's
really?
Just that everyone, you can do that. It's just that everyone's too lazy to do that. So it's not going to happen. I bet they're counting on lazy people, which I am.
Most of Ontario is open, hey, except for the GTA. Oh, in Windsor for some reason. What do we do?
There are people there.
There are lots of people
where it's open. There are no people. So
the thing about these cities, there's people.
Yeah,
it's what ruins them.
That's true. It's true. So anyway, we're I don't know what the rules are for the hockey rink, but it's nice to see. It's nice to have. There isn't a lot of crazy new hockey news either. There hasn't been much. I know that they still have to we still need confirmation. Remember, we were going to get it is now June the 10th, and we were going to have a draft on June 5th. We still haven't had confirmation.
No, 25th.
Oh no, the draft was going to be June 5th. They were going to do the draft at the beginning of June. And that got
canceled, and then they're doing the draft lottery now.
So now they're doing the lottery.
Yes, they're doing the lottery, and then they're setting the rules for that, and then they might have the second lottery. If you remember, that'll involve the teams that were eliminated, and then the draft will be at a later date.
It's cool, man. Yeah, excited.
So a whole bunch of awesome.
There's
a
lot going on.
I was trying to think of the biggest player related hockey news, and I think it's Lawrence Pilut of the Sabres signing a 2-year contract in Russia with Tractor Chelyabinsk. So are you guys ready for the next half hour as we discuss that?
One thing I do hear all the talk radio sports programs in the city doing is the trophy winner debates. So I've heard a couple of stations do the hey, who do you think is going to get the Vezina? Who do you think is going to get a Hart? But you can only do that once, and then what are you going to do for the next 2 months?
Also, it's hard because those conversations, any given year, you're kind of pulling your opinion a little bit out of your ass because it's not like you saw every game that player played, the player you're discussing played. Now it's you haven't seen that player play very much, and also the last time you saw them play was at least 3 months ago. I saw – remember the whole controversy and how embarrassed some people were? They didn't know if Ovechkin was left or right wing. There were just people en masse out in the open going, folks, what position did Leon Draisaitl play? I don't know. That guy led the NHL in scoring by 20 points, and people didn't know what position he played. I don't know. I don't have the most patience for those conversations at the best of times. Now I'm just dude, I haven't seen them play in 3 months.
All right.
I think the most exciting Hart Trophy debate I've ever been a part of was whether it should have gone to Taylor Hall or Connor McDavid. And I maintained it should have been Connor McDavid, even though his team didn't make the playoffs. He was still the most valuable player to his team because they would have won 0 total games without him that year.
And Adam was right. And
I think history proved that Taylor Hall probably didn't deserve the Hart that year.
It's crazy.
You know,
he deserved a nomination.
Crazy. Yeah, sure. Of course. He had a great year. Yeah. One thing that I think, talking about highlights of the last week is the Diversity Alliance. Trevor Daley, Matt Dumma, Wayne Simmons, Akeem Aliu, Evander Kane, Chris Stewart, Joel Ward, and they're rounding out the committee. Now the idea, from what we understand, is to start small, and then eventually work with the NHL. Although this body is a body outside of the NHL currently, I think the NHL is taking its time, and rightfully so, to make sure it puts forward a plan that is the right course of action. And they have someone at the helm there that is qualified to do that. So that's great. One thing that I know Black Girl Hockey Club was sort of upset about, and I understand this or I can understand why, is that there was no women included in that initial group. Now they've said, the Hockey Diversity Alliance has said, well, wait a second, we will include women. We just started this. And so, look forward to that. But it'll be interesting to see now these guys in what they're going to be able to do, because there's a visibility with alliances like this and groups like this that the NHL has just never had before. And it will be very, I think it'll be great for the game, and it'll be great for the growth of the game. We've talked about, Sean Fitzgerald. We had him on last year. One of the best episodes we had was him. And he wrote a book called Before the Lights Go Out, and I think you should read it. But it's about how hockey is declining in this country in a huge way.
En masse, yeah.
And these guys are not forming. I think part of the goal here is to grow hockey within minority groups. But I think the first and foremost thing is having people treat them with respect at the rink, and that comes all the way through up through the programs. And a side effect of that is more families from non-white backgrounds are going to feel more comfortable at the rink. It's the crazy part, as a juxtaposition to this, that's a bubbling story right now, is the GTHL. So if you don't know what the GTHL is, it's a massively important Toronto Hockey League, Greater Toronto League. You played in the GTHL, which I played in a precursor to it. My league has now been absorbed by the GTHL. Essentially, it's single A, double A, triple A, and then, once you're like 14, 15, if you're good enough, you're going to junior.
Was it the SHL, Adam?
SHA was I.
SHA, right.
Which was the Scarborough version of it, which is now part of the GTHL. Okay. So the problem here with the GTHL is 10 years ago, they talked about racial slurs in the game, and they actually released some information on players who were penalized. Rick Westhead, who weirdly has Steve blocked. We still don't know why.
I saw people tweeting about it, and I'm like, can't wait for Adam to tell me what the story is.
No. I don't know why he's had you blocked for like 10 years, but he has.
I don't know.
Rick Westhead's been talking about this, and it's a fascinating story. And I just want to bring up his account. I want to make sure that I get this right, because this story is kind of developing. And so let me just read this. It's from 19 hours ago. Update. The GTHL refuses to disclose details on the number of penalties called in games for racial slurs. But this hasn't always been the case. The Toronto Star reported in December 2009 that racial slurs were on the rise in the largest minor hockey league in the world. So the GTHL is the largest minor hockey league in the world. The GTHL hired a consulting firm to poll officials after every game between 2005 and 2008. In 2006-07, there were 9 penalty calls for discriminatory slurs. In the next season, there was 47. The next season, there was 98.
Hey, one is too many.
One is too many. One is too many. And this is where it gets worse. The GTHL, 11 years ago, issued a directive to officials and teams to be on notice about racial slurs. The executive director, Scott Oakman, told the Star, socially, this is unacceptable. With the nature of our demographics, we have an obligation to address it. I mean, not even forget with the nature of our demographics. We just have an obligation to address it, should have been the quote. The GTHL at the time suspended players 3 games for racial slurs. Former NHL goalie Kevin Weeks said that wasn't good enough. He called for 10 to 15 game suspensions. Oakman said the GTHL did issue longer suspensions sometimes, but didn't want to boost mandatory minimums. Oakman to the Toronto Star at the time. There are degrees of discriminatory language. When you increase the minimum, the lowest common denominator moves up. And that is the end of the thread for now.
Hey, how about this? If you say something that's racist on an ice rink, you don't get to play hockey because you shouldn't be a part of the game if you're acting that way. How about that one? Instead of suspending somebody for, 3 games? Mm-hmm. That's absurd.
You think of how exhausted Kevin Weeks is. Like,
he says he's not going to talk about the GTHL until they figure this out. And by the way, they are steadfastly refusing to release any numbers on this right now.
Yeah, because it'd probably be embarrassing.
Probably be a national story.
See, I was just thinking, like, is it possible? Because the whole league is minors, right? So is it possible they're protecting minors? But we're not asking for names. We're asking for just statistics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think more than this, because they are minors, they do need to take some responsibility here. But when they are minors, they're in the care of their parents.
Yep.
And whether or not that is taught at home, because sometimes people pick that stuff up because they think it's cool or whatever. I think you got to take a good hard look at what's going on at home if something like this comes up. So, and I'm not suggesting you name the parents, but I am suggesting that if your kid in a game utters a racial slur, that there's some pretty serious consequences that need to come to the parents and the kid. You know, the kid has to have their toy taken away, which is playing hockey. There's got to be something that, responsibility-wise is on the parents. And I think if you want to play in that league, you should have to sign a waiver taking responsibility for your child's actions on the ice. If they are a minor, they are in your care, you should have to be responsible for what they do. And, I know that opens up a can of worms for injuries and things like that. But I mean, at what point, are we going to try to stop this, or are we just going to kind of dance around it? And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but whether or not you as a parent teach that in your home, it's still your responsibility to end that type of behavior. And, the league only has the opportunity to end that type of behavior in the league. And Jesse's right. You kick people out, usually the behavior probably goes away.
An attention grabber for sure.
Yeah, but I do think there has got to be some sort of recourse here where it's like, okay, like I don't know how you put parents on notice for something like that. But there has to be, we got to go a little bit deeper, I think, than like suspensions are just, it's just punitive, right? We have to change the way people think, and the way people view this problem. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm just spitballing, but it's especially given on what's going on the world stage right now, it behooves that league to get their shit together, admit their faults, and then do something about it.
So can you repeat the number for me? The number went up to, it was 98 penalties assessed?
Issued for racial slurs, yeah.
Wasn't it 9 to start? Didn't you say?
Yeah, it was. So I wonder how much so they had the consulting firm to poll officials after every game. So I wonder if the officials let some of that stuff go, because 9 to 47 to 98 over the course of 3 years sure seems like a jump of, okay, we're actually enforcing this now, rather than, all of a sudden people are racist again.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like they weren't counting it when it was 9.
Or they were, ignoring it,
Because 98, how many games do they play? That's like one in God knows how many games. Like, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's not even just that it's an issue and maybe they're not penalizing it hard enough. This sounds rampant.
Well, and 98, when you consider how many GTHL games there are, is it's a huge number, but there are a huge number of GTHL games too. So my worry is that 98 isn't even accurate.
It's even bigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Because a lot of that stuff goes unheard by officials or just unpenalized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when you initially said those numbers, 1 is too many. Like that's too many for a bunch of kids, literally kids on an ice trying to play a sport and have fun. Nobody should be subjected to that. That's harassment. It's racist. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Got some explaining to do.
Yeah. So when we talk about Hockey Diversity Alliance and Black Girl Hockey Club and, these groups that are trying to do and are doing great work, this is the sort of stuff that they're fighting. And when you hold this information back, you hold back progress. I think people are afraid of, frankly, losing their jobs, and maybe they should be. But beyond that, we have got to move forward. And if we don't have some degree of accountability from the organizations that are allowing our children to play in these sports, I don't see how you can put your kids in them. If you're not going to be accountable to the public when you have their children in your care, I don't think you deserve to have your children in their care. Or sorry, they don't deserve to take your money. They don't deserve to have that sort of responsibility and to make money. You gotta
take the GT. Sorry.
No, you please go ahead.
Well, you got to take the GTHL off its pedestal because it's still parents. They want to say my kid plays in the GTHL if you come from a certain area. So
part of the problem too, Steve, is that we have a unified body of hockey in this country that was meant to do good. But I find that whenever you have one body controlling everything, it can lead to issues. And, there are lots of issues with Hockey Canada, and right on down. Like the GTHL is the only league. So it's hard to it'd be like if you only had one car manufacturer, right? You had only one car manufacturer. They can sell you the car whatever the fucking price they want, and it can be as shitty as they want it to be, and they never have to make it better. This league and Hockey Canada as a body, despite the good that they do, and let's not take that away from them, are not moving with where the world is moving. And frankly, don't have to be as accountable. And no one, and there's no competitive. It's sort of the same issue that we've had with video games, right? If you have, and I know this seems like a ridiculous comparison, but hear me out. When EA buys the license for a sporting game, they just release the game, and it's like, too bad, suck it up. But there are certain sports where you can buy multiple games. You buy the best game. And so parents don't really have a choice. Your kid plays in the GTHL or they play house league. Or they don't. Even the house leagues are at a lot of times controlled by the GTHL or Hockey Canada or both. And so that is an issue in and of itself. And I hope that, I sometimes I feel like when these bodies get a little too powerful, they become a bit clubby, and they look out for each other, cliquey, and they look out for each other, and they don't look out for what's actually best for the sport. And if you are a director of the GTHL right now, and you think that the right thing is to not release this information, then you do not deserve to be there.
Well, and you're just leaving everyone with the assumption that it's really, really bad.
Well, here's what's worse. What if they don't know?
I mean, at least release what you do know.
But isn't that worse? What's worse to me is that, if they knew and it's high, that's one thing, which is bad. But if they don't know and they release that they don't know, first off, my mind goes to, well, don't you care about that? You did studies on it. And number two is, what else don't you know about your league?
This is part of the reason why when this conversation began, you were talking about, the new alliance, and also mentioned Black Girl Hockey, and you mentioned that they were independent of the NHL. My first thought was good. Like, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
That's clearly what's going on.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily to rip on the NHL. It's just there's so much red tape and foot dragging, when it comes to, big leagues and big bodies and stuff like that. And sometimes you just got to take the initiative of yourself, go around them, and then they'll approach you, which is what I'm hoping happens here. But the GTHL, they got to fix their shit.
Yeah, I hope one day they listen to people like Akim Aliu, who who was a teenager and has to go to hockey. You know, he's all excited on a Thursday after school just to go play a game. And then he goes to the game and he has to hear racial slurs. And then he goes home and he's crushed. You know, I hope they listen to people who've experienced that and they realize that, hey, we have to change this.
Right. And Akeem Alley played in the GTHL.
Yep.
So did Wayne Simmons. So anyway, that's some progress and some people dragging their feet. But I think eventually, if guys like Rick Westhead stay on this story, even though Steve won't find out about it till later, hopefully, we get some progress on this, because I think it is the thing that needs to happen. And whether they know or they don't know, neither answer is good. So time to figure it out. Fair?
Yeah.
Fair. So with that, we've got an extended press conference coming up here. Mm-hmm. Jesse also mentioned that he would like to play some audio.
Yes.
Which we haven't had in a while. Steven, you ready for some audio?
I am, but we're skipping over what I thought was one of the biggest stories this week.
Oh, what are we skipping?
We were going to talk about.
No, please. What did I forget?
Our old pal Eugene.
Oh, okay. What else
more
about Eugene?
Melnyk Sens Foundation stuff?
Oh, because remember we were like, this sounds funny. Well, more details came out, and it sounds a little bit more than funny, fellas.
Okay, what do we got?
It's always fun when Steve leads a story.
I love it.
Where it's going.
So it started with an article printed in the Ottawa Sun by Rick Gibbons. And then Dave Feschuk did a follow-up, and I have not read it yet. But I encourage you to read the whole thing. I'm going to read you a couple snippets. What would you think if a charity raised nearly $1 million but spent less than half a cent of every dollar raised on the causes it was supposed to support? Hold that thought. Now, what would you think if the sole director of that same private Toronto-based charitable foundation now wants greater control over another charity, this one in Ottawa, the Ottawa Senators Foundation? You good with that? Again, hold that thought. First, some background, and then they go into the background. And they get into the nitty-gritty. There were accusations of the Sens charged the Sens Foundation a lot of money in rent.
Yep, we talked about that.
They were reporting was not typical. So basically, Eugene Melnyk wanted to divert some of the Sens Foundation funds into organ donation charities, which makes perfect sense. Eugene Melnyk's life was saved by an organ donation about 5 years ago.
From a Sens fan.
The real issue isn't here. This is another excerpt from the article. The real issue isn't costs. It's about control of the foundation's operations, including where it dispenses the cash. The foundation didn't entirely ignore Melnyk's appeal to flow at least some cash into organ donation awareness. In 2018, against its better judgment, perhaps, it budgeted $100,000 plus an additional $15,000 in sponsorships to the Organ Project, TOP, a Toronto-based private charitable foundation set up by Melnyk in 2016 to manage his pet project, creating greater awareness about organ donations and waiting lists. Ultimately, the $100,000 was never sent. According to Canada Revenue Agency filings, the Organ Donation Project generated $991,708 in revenues in 2018, primarily thanks to a big charity gala it staged in Toronto. No doubt that $100,000 Senators Foundation check helped. So what happened to all that money? Again, according to CRA filings, the Organ Project invested barely $5,000 of the nearly $1 million it raised on organ donor awareness. For those without a calculator, that's 0.49%, or less than half a cent for every dollar raised. And yet the Sens Foundation is being attacked for investing about 50 cents on every dollar it raises on programs. The hypocrisy is stunning. So where did all the Organ Project money go if not to worthy causes. According to the CRA, a whopping $779,464 went to cover fundraising costs. Another $238,118 went to management and administration. I'm told these are the kind of results most certain to draw the attention of the tax man. So, and I might as well read this one final paragraph and then we'll talk. The Oregon Project is registered as a private foundation and, as such, does not require an arm's length community board of directors overseeing operations, as does the Ottawa Senators Foundation. Instead, it appears to have only one director, Eugene Melnyk.
So basically, the allegation is the money was spent in, like I said to you on Sunday. You buy a computer for somebody that's working. We got to renovate the offices. We got to, we had to rent these trucks and this venue, and the table costs are so expensive.
What did they call it? Fundraising costs?
Yes. You better break those fundraising costs down, baby, because CRA is going to be right down your neck about that one. You better know to the knife how much it cost.
So let me reread the one paragraph that got everyone real hot and bothered. So what happened to all that money? Again, according to CRA filings, the Oregon Project, which is the charity Eugene Melnyk started in 2016, the Oregon Project invested barely $5,000 of the nearly $1 million it raised in Oregon donor awareness. For those without a calculator, that's 0.49% or less than half a cent of every dollar raised. So, fellas, we've been talking about a lot of bad news. I got some good news. Some good news actually came out of this. And I imagine more good news is going to come out of it. But this one in particular is wonderful. Graham Nichols. Some of you might follow him on Twitter as Sixth Sens, which is a very clever Twitter name. They said, they sent out a tweet being disgusted that the Oregon Project only raised supposedly $5,000 or contributed $5,000 towards Oregon research.
They raised $1 million, you said, and
they raised $1 million.
Only contributed $5,000.
Contributed $5,000. So he sent a tweet on June 8th, so 2 days ago. Rather than start a consolidated GoFundMe, which would pull some funds from the pooled money, which is a problem we've run into, people can donate directly to the Trillium Gift of Life network here. So he was basically like, come on, Sens fans, screw all this. We can raise the money ourselves. We could probably raise more than $5,000 in an afternoon. He was right.
Oh.
And he tweeted this 4 hours ago. An update for you all. Over the last 48 hours, Trillium Gift has received a total of $20,604.50 from this campaign, spurred by Rick Gibbons' article on Monday. A huge thank you to everyone in Sens and Hockey Twitter for supporting this cause in support of Oregon donation. I'm floored.
Wow.
That's cool.
Way to go.
Well done.
Sens fans.
Way to go, Sens fans.
Hockey fans, and Graham Nichols in particular. You contributed 4 times the amount of money towards Oregon research than whatever the hell that weird pet project allegedly is. I love when Hockey Twitter comes together.
It's great, isn't it?
The only little tidbit I read from the Feschuk thing, I'm dying to read it. I'm going to read it as soon as I'm done. Is
I don't know what the Feschuk thing is.
So sorry, he wrote a follow-up to the previous article.
Okay.
And basically, we've talked about Sens fans and they're not showing up to games and blah, blah, blah. Although they'll show up to games and they have money and they're interested. They just don't want to spend it on Eugene Melnyk's team. And they came together in a 48-hour period from a tweet and raised $20,000. Hashtag Melnyk out.
Yeah, really.
I'm done.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's a pretty easy one. Do you guys mind if we pause for just a sec? I got to bring my dogs in. I can hear them barking at strangers outside. Give me one second.
No problem.
Okay, last thing before the press conference, Jesse, you've got some audio to play.
I do have some audio to play. So this will be a lot more fun than talking about how little the Sens give to charity. It's around 2 minutes of audio. It's 2 clips that I've spliced together. So what I'm going to ask from you guys is the first time we listen to it all the way through.
Okay.
You're going to hear ourselves, the three of us talk, and then you're going to hear another clip. Come on.
Okay.
This feels like an important question to ask for me. Yeah. Am I allowed to say anything?
No, we just said you can't say anything.
The first time you listen, just listen all the way through. Listen to both clips. Listen to the first one.
I have a feeling.
Second one. And then I'll play it back, and then we'll unpack it. And then if you want to do a start and pause and you want to go back to it, we can definitely do that.
Okay.
All right. Are you guys ready?
Born ready.
Ready.
Steve, who will not buy himself new clothes, bought a kayak.
On an
especially
impulse?
in 2012. Especially in 2012.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
On an impulse.
On an impulse. And then you'd call your friend Andy to come pick you up because it couldn't fit on your car.
Oh, yeah, because
So
I
Steve-
didn't have a roof rack.
So Steve impulse buys a kayak and can't leave.
The kayak trapped you in a parking lot.
And I was just like, oh, yeah.
You're storing it at your friend Matt's cottage.
Yes.
And how many times in the last 5 years, 6 years since you bought it, have you used it?
I used it a lot when I first got it because we kept it at a friend's house who was on the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great. They said, just come over, use it whenever you want. So I did. Now I get to use it like once a year when I go up to
So you bought your friend a kayak?
I still have it.
No, you don't have
No,
it.
he has it.
You've never,
Yeah, you own it, but you don't
never
have it.
had a kayak.
All I gotta do is get a
Steve.
roof rack.
Steve, you've never had a kayak. You bought your friend a kayak and put it at his place.
How can I?
I moved to Leslieville, down near Woodbine Beach, and got a little apartment there. And I was thinking it was so much fun walking the beach with my daughter Everly because she absolutely loves being down by the beach. And I went and I dipped her in the water.
Didn't.
Guys, about a paddleboard. I'm looking at these people outside, and it's a beautiful Monday, and I was like, well, they seem to be having fun on their paddleboards, and I could bring my daughter out and get her used to the water and sit her on the board when she's there. I wouldn't bring her out deep, but I have a life jacket for her. I've got a bathing suit for her.
Baby jacket.
So we could paddle together.
Oh, man.
And it was on sale. Let me just say it was on sale, severely reduced.
Adam Waddle. Bought a paddleboard.
I live near water. I can do that.
Is the
I live 10
exact
minutes.
same
10 minutes
as the
that way.
time Steve bought a kayak, and I just gotta say, I'm embarrassed to know both of you.
You guys watch. I'm gonna actually do my kayak paddleboard thing.
So
you
Adam,
watch.
I have to say,
So
I
that
have to
second
ask.
clip of Adam talking about buying a paddleboard was from today on Virgin Radio when he had wanted to talk about how he bought a paddleboard and he'll never use it because I don't think he's ever going to use it.
so your new nickname, hypocritical garbage. I have a question for you. So originally I was upset. I was hurt, bamboozled, led astray, if you will, Adam. That you would do the exact same thing that you ripped me apart for.
Yep.
But immediately I thought, how can I benefit from this?
Okay.
And it sounds an awful lot like with that clip. Like it's amazing. Like you guys make fun of me for the big headphones, but like you really hear the sound under the sound. And what I could have swore I heard is, Steve, you can keep your boat at my house. That's what I thought. Can you roll that? I thought I might have heard Steve, my friend, as your friend. Garbage. I would like to store your boat at my hypocritical garbage house.
In my defense, how am I hypocritical garbage? I've only owned it for a couple of days. So for me, I'm storing it in my own driveway right now. Yeah. And I did buy a kayak rack, so you can bring your kayak down.
Did you have one at the time?
I did not. I ordered it off Wayfair. It's going to be here sometime next year.
Congrats on your new paddleboard there, Matt. Congrats on your new paddleboard, Matt. Congrats.
Guys, Steve, you can leave your kayak here. The HMC is Fuck Adam, which I believe is its name. I'm going to go paddleboarding tonight if I can. I got to get the fin on it. But once I get the fin on it, I'm going to show you two fuckers. Okay.
I hope you get
before the lightning hits though, because I don't want to get electrocuted.
Oh yeah, like you should very not go tonight. But no, I hope you get bit by horseflies. I'm just saying that's the worst. I've paddleboarded before, and you're like, and you're struggling to keep balance as it is.
Jesse thinks I'm only going to use this like 2 times.
I think you're going to try and use it as much as possible this summer. And I think going forward, your life will not be filled with a bunch of paddleboarding like you imagined it would be when you impulse bought it on Sunday.
Jesse, he's going to use the hell out of it this summer. He's going to use the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And then May's going to come, and he's going to think about taking it out.
Like next year?
Oh, yeah. And he's going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you bet he'll think about it. And then all of a sudden it'll be June.
Yep.
And he'll think about it. And he'll remember having thought of it previously. In July, a little bit more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the end of August. And he goes, why bother? And then when Matt goes to close up his cottage, he's earned himself a new paddleboard.
Steve.
Yes, Jesse?
As someone who has experience in impulse buying watercrafts, aka your kayak, how many times have you used your kayak in the last couple of years?
Well, Jesse, I think a better question would be, how many times have I thought about using it?
True. It's a good point.
Bunch. Monthly, at least.
Yeah.
How many? I gotta say, in the middle of a global pandemic, my prospects of using my kayak right now are limited.
Adam, we all live in the GTA. We all live near water.
But I live nearer. So, and I live near a beach now.
Well,
that's a beach like 4 weeks of the year because it's Canada.
Yep.
And it's a paddleboard. So, like, do you put it on your roof, or like, do you just walk across the street like, "Sup, everyone? I'm going for a paddleboard."
I could bring my dar out of my paddleboard. My truck, because I have a truck that can transport it, and I'll just bungee cord it down. It'd be easy. I just don't have a roof rack for my truck, which I should have gotten.
Killing the earth and then going to enjoy the fruits of it.
It's 2 minutes down the road. Come on.
HMCS hypocritical garbage.
I didn't say I would never invest in a watercraft. At that time, I just said that
all you did was make fun of Steve relentlessly for doing it.
Not for ignoring his for 8 years. Yes.
No, yeah. We'll see 8 years from now. We'll play this clip again. We'll see when I buy a Sea-Doo. You guys can play this clip for me, but
okay.
I'm smarter than that, so it's never going to happen.
Yeah, except your story goes completely different. Hey, I'm really successful, and I live on an island because I don't like people, and I get to use it every day. Said Jesse Blake on his own podcast.
I feel like Jesse likes people.
Friendless and alone.
I don't know. Just Steve, call me when you Steve use your kayak, and Adam, you use your paddleboard, and you guys are out there on the lake. I'm gonna up for that one time. It's gonna happen.
I'm gonna Insta story it tonight, and just to prove to you guys that I'm doing it. I don't even know how to do it, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
We all think you're gonna do it a whole bunch in the next 3 months, Adam. But 8 years from now, we're gonna be talking about how you paddleboarded for 3 months.
I'm gonna get Matt to bring you my kayak, and I'm gonna take you out at the legs. I'm just gonna go next to you and rock my kayak like this. I'm not gonna knock you off. I'm just gonna knock you off balance.
I'm gonna use my paddleboard as a diving board, and I'm gonna jump on the front of your kayak and flip you off and sink your battleship. All right.
Wow, Adam.
Yeah.
And then what about your daughter
in that movie?
And then where's your daughter through all this?
Where's my wife?
What? Your daughter.
My daughter?
Yeah, your daughter. You got her a life jacket.
I did get a life jacket.
Now you're getting all the accoutrement to go with it.
Well, I already had a life jacket for her. That's sort of kind of key when you want your daughter to be able to swim, and they're young and they can't swim yet.
Yeah.
So you do have a life jacket.
Too, yeah.
And it's Adam, so you know he got some you didn't get no cheap paddleboard.
He got the Tesla one.
I did not.
I got two Gucci life jackets.
On sale.
You guys got Gucci life jackets. You know you do, Adam Wild. Hypocritical garbage.
On sale, and it was cheap. Cheap as chips. Because I didn't want to spend too much, because I didn't want to use it for 3 months and then never use it again.
You don't want to do that.
No, I don't. So I want to make sure that I'm committed, and then next year I'll spend too much money maybe.
Yeah, it works.
I can save up all winter. Think about my paddleboard.
This is
My
gonna be so
paddleboard and
great.
waste.
It's so awesome that you live in a climate that only allows you to use the thing you bought for 3 months.
Well, listen.
Like, it must be a great investment to have this machine that only works kind of times of the year.
Guys, if I got a wetsuit, I could use it all the way till December, okay? And I have a wetsuit. So there.
Yeah, and also you get to swim the sunny shores of Lake Ontario, where
clean waters.
5 minutes of exposure, you'll grow gills and a nose on your forehead.
Who says I'm going in the water? I'm just going to be on top of it. So
You'll never fall once.
never. You don't fall in paddleboards.
No.
Not when you're experienced sea captain Adam Wilde.
Have you completed the turn
Have I completed the turn? I don't imagine it's that hard.
during your Hapanoa?
Have you ever paddleboarded before?
No. But I've had my dad windsurfed growing up, and so I spent lots of time on boards that were similar with a canoe.
No, I hear windsurfing is hereditary. That's what they always say in the baby books.
Oh,
Like, watch out, because
jerk.
your son or daughter is going to have great windsurfing
Listen
skills
to
if
this
you have
dick.
it.
You're such a jerk. Oh my God. I think it's going to be a really fun pastime, and I look forward to sending you guys pictures and making you jealous. And maybe you can come to the beach and I'll show off to you sometime.
Totally, yeah.
You can use it if you want. You want to go out and paddleboard? You guys are more than welcome. We can get all three of us up on it together.
Is it that big?
I don't think so,
No.
but it looks like it is.
I
I think you could sit three people on it pretty easily. I don't know about standing. That might be pretty tricky.
Okay.
Steve, why have we lost you, Steve?
Yeah, what are you looking at?
I was looking at kayaks.
I
I miss it.
Well,
Googling?
do you have a car in which to bring it home or no?
I'll think about getting something for my car to bring it home. I'll think about it. Will I do it? We'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, there you go, guys. I own a paddleboard, and let's do the press conference.
All right.
The
For Adam's History Corner, today is going to be a little special. Adam has a special rendition about a book he just read.
That's right.
So Adam Wilde read a book on mosquitoes. It's called, Hey, Mosquitoes Should All Own Paddleboards. And I'm Adam Wilde, and I love it. So, Adam, tell us about this book.
Okay, so it's called The Mosquito. It's by Timothy C. Weingart, who's actually a Canadian working out of the University of Denver. He's a doctor. And it is the human history of our deadliest predator. They estimate something like 50 billion humans have died at the hands of mosquitoes over the course of our history.
Wow.
And what's fascinating about this is it goes through the entire timeline of our known history, like the written down history, and talks about the effects of mosquito-borne disease on everything. So every major conflict, every major pandemic, everything that went wrong, in part, most of the time, had to do with mosquitoes. And one of the things that I found particularly fascinating was the fact that the reason, like, especially given what's happening right now in the world, the whole reason the Atlantic slave trade existed, or what is sometimes called the Columbian Exchange, the whole reason that it existed is that the mosquito carried diseases like dengue, yellow fever, and malaria. So the whole reason that Europeans bought Africans, caught Africans, stole Africans, and brought them to North America and the West Indies and South America as well, was that mosquitoes existed. Now you're probably thinking, what's the connection? So when they tried to colonize North America, especially in the southern states and in the Indies, what they found was there were two types of people that were available to them, right? You had people who were native, part of the native population, and then you had servants, indentured servants from European powers. So what the Spanish especially did was they tried to enslave the native populations that they conquered to do things like mining and deforestation and farming things. They were looking for gold, and what they found was, because of things like the measles and smallpox and things like that, these populations were dying very quickly because they had no built-up immunity like we do. So then they try bringing over poor Europeans, indentured servants. So an indentured servant is a very, very interesting concept. Is that basically you are a person who's extremely poor. Let's say you live in one of the major cities. You live in Paris, you live in London, you live in Barcelona, whatever. And you want to go over to the New World and try to have some land, which is something that would just never be available to you in Europe. You would never be able to afford it. You'd never find a job that would pay for it. There's no social movement up the ladder. So what you would agree to do is, for passage on a ship, you would give away 7 years of your labor to a particular person. And at the end of that 7 years, you would be granted land by the crown, whichever crown that you were, Spain, England, sometimes Portugal, the Netherlands a little bit. And what they found was these indentured servants, these people who gave up their freedom to go work for free for 7 years to pay for the ship ride over and then eventually get free land out of it, were not surviving. And that's because dengue, yellow fever, some other these mosquito-borne diseases. So, and I believe it was the Spanish and the Portuguese first figured out that because of a specific genetic predisposition that certain Africans had, they were able to resist these diseases far better than a European could. So sickle cell anemia, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but essentially it's a disease of the blood that developed, and I'm just giving you the overview here, that developed because of malaria. And because because the human body reacted over many, many, many generations to, the body dying of malaria. So sickle cell anemia would prevent you from dying of malaria, but it did kill you, and it killed you around the age of 24 or 25. And there's actually a Pittsburgh Steeler who has it, Ryan Clark. And again, it's a genetic thing. And anybody that has sickle cell anemia cannot play in Denver without intense medical supervision because of the thin air. And it has to do, and again, the book gets into this, but it's absolutely fascinating. So what they did was they brought these Africans over, and they became the first slaves. And Africans could survive these things. And sickle cell anemia might kill you by 24 or 25, but that was long enough to reproduce, so the species could keep going. And what's fascinating further than that is the reason that it continued was because they thought when the American Revolutionary War happened, the thought was it wasn't economically sustainable for slavery to continue because of the crops they were making at the time, things like coffee and that sort of thing. So they thought that over time it would probably take care of itself. And that, though a lot of them thought it was wrong, if they wanted a union, they would be able to, they would have to look past it. And they also thought, well, a lot of the Northerners thought, well, you know what? It's not really economically viable to do this anyway. So England starts to go elsewhere for its tea and its coffee and other things like that, cheaper places. And the Southern United States says, we got to make a choice here. What are we going to farm that we can give to the world? Cotton. And this is when slavery becomes industrialized, because cotton, there's two types of it. There's the long stalk and the short stalk. The long stalk stuff, and this is really crazy, only grows on like a couple islands outside of Georgia. And it's the better stuff to have. It's easy to pick. It's easy to go through and easy to create, but it's impossible to grow. The short stalk stuff, you can grow it, but it requires a ton of hard labor. And that's when you see the industrialization of slavery. And that is when you start to clear large tracts of land, what does that attract? Gigantic swarms of mosquitoes, because there is standing water. So by clearing the land, by creating these plantations, they were making the mosquitoes like perfect habitats to exist within, especially in the Southern United States. And the only people that could really survive it, and there were 7 or 8 U.S. presidents that had it, including Washington, like malaria, were these African slaves. And so that is why, partially, a good chunk of why this even happened in the first place. And I think it's an important book to read. Not only does it help explain some world events, but I think it's an important book to read because it does get into the social factors that played in this as well. You talk about white superiority and the reasons that our systems are the way they are. It can be boiled down to many things, part of the biological reason they happen was because of mosquitoes. The social reason is humanity. But it is an absolutely fascinating read all the way through. And you would not believe the effect that this one little creature, which has no value to Earth outside of, it's no food source for anything. It's nobody's main food source. There's no animal out there that hunts mosquitoes. The mosquito really is one of the only creatures on Earth that only exists to perpetuate itself. It doesn't help anything. Nothing is helped by it being there. There's a theory, we don't know this, there's a theory that if we didn't have any mosquitoes, not much would change except for the fact that a bunch of diseases would just disappear, and would be much harder to transfer from body to body. But absolutely fascinating read. And if anybody is interested, it is The Mosquito, A Human History of Our Deadliest Predator, Timothy C. Weingart. I think it's fascinating. And it does a far better job of explaining than what I just did. But I thought it was particularly relevant given what we have seen happen in the last 14 days. And I got to tell you, there are parts of this book that are really tough to read, but it's absolutely worth it.
That's awesome. You should do book reviews. Holy shit.
You know you're really good at this, right?
Wow.
You guys weren't saying anything. I was like, oh, fuck.
You should review every book you read and do like a fucking 10-minute book review. That was amazing.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane though that happened? Like it's just you just don't ever learn that. You would never know.
What drew you to that book?
It was on. Okay, so my mom.
Who mentioned it last episode? Was it you?
My mom and my stepdad watch. I think it was CBS This Morning, which is actually a pretty good little news magazine on Sunday mornings, and it's for mostly older people watch it, which is why they watch it.
But they're relevant in the fact that they get who they want in terms of celebrities and news people and that sort of stuff. Like they'll have Ariana Grande on one week and the next week it'll be Obama.
Yeah.
Like they're a relevant show. Yeah.
Oh, very relevant. Yeah. And it's like the lighter version of 60 Minutes, right? The Sunday morning digestible, and then 60 Minutes on Sunday night, which I also love. It's just like, let's get hardcore. But they have things like these books, and it's my parents told me about it, and I was like, well, I got to read that. And I had no idea. The first page, just wow. And I mean, I listened to the first page. I didn't read it. But from the first go, it was just an amazing book that just sucks you right in. And it's well read on the audio version as well. So if you're like Audible or you do Apple Books, audiobooks or whatever, like I do, it is so worth it. It's such a fascinating, illuminating piece. Like you read books sometimes, you're like, I got a little out of that. This one just warps your whole world perspective and makes you aware of certain things that you would never have otherwise been aware of. There was no other place on the world. Like there's no other way that you would know that about a mosquito, right? Like who's doing research on that? So anyway.
Jesus, Adam. I don't know how to follow that up, man.
I know it's heavy stuff, man, but it's worth it. We need to learn this stuff. We need to learn this stuff. Another one I was talking to Jesse about, and maybe I can do this next episode, but King Leopold's Ghost is another book you must read. Especially
that one's very relevant right now. Yeah.
Oh my
God. King Leopold?
Leopold.
I saw that name recently.
King Leopold II of Belgium.
That's why.
Yeah, he is basically responsible for the Belgian Congo, major rubber trade source, treated people horrendously. I can tell you about it next episode, but it is another book that, like, I don't even know if I have the strength to read that one ever again. It was so painful. It's such a brutal book, but it all happened.
There's a lot of statues coming down, and I think this is one of them.
Well, I'm surprised that he even had one. Like even the Belgian people didn't like him, like for these reasons. And it's funny because people talk about at that time. Well, he's a man of his time. It was late Victorian era, and everybody was racist. Well, okay, maybe. No, not necessarily. And in fact, this man was internationally condemned at the time. The only issue is that he was a king. What are they going to do? Tell him to give up the crown? He'll be like, fuck off. And the worst part about it is that he sold the Congo to the Belgian government. It was his personal colony that he sold to the Belgian government before he died, just so they could take it off his hands. It's just, and then the cruelty continued. It's just an unbelievable read. Again, things that we need to know that we never would have learned otherwise.
Jesus.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Vicious stuff. Awful. Anyway. I know it's been a lot up and down this episode, but I think it's important that we talk about these works.
I just learned that My book is in the recommended for Father's Day section on
Is it?
Indigo's
There you
website.
go.
So there you go. And
Daddy Dangles.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's what it's called.
I'm gonna
Can we get to a couple questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Jaden Ho wants to know, do you think it's a good idea for the NHL to keep this playoff format going forward? It'd be kind of interesting.
No.
I think you got to see how it goes, but I don't think they will. I mean, you're asking the NHL,
Oh.
the league that never changes, to change.
Sorry. I think I might have misunderstood the question. Like, are you talking about like reseeding after the fact? Because obviously we're not going to have a play-in tournament every year. I don't think that makes sense.
I think that would be interesting. What if you had the last 2 playoff spot played for a tournament between 8 and 9 and 10 and 11?
They do it in other leagues. I
Sorry,
don't hate
7
that.
and 8 and 9 and 10.
I think the NHL, they always talk about the old guys talk about the good old days of the NHL in the 80s. And, you know, the reality was that 16 teams made the playoffs back then, but there were only 21.
Almost every team.
Almost every team made it. So I don't see there being a bad reason why more teams should make it. I, in fact, think it's better for the game if you've got more teams in. If you add a 5th round, I think what you do is you make that 5th round one that, you know, the top seeded teams don't have to play. And then it's kind of fun because in the 2nd round, those top seeded teams haven't played hockey for a week and a half, and they're going up against teams that have beat the crap out of each other. So you kind of have that, you know, and I believe in reseeding every round. I think you should do that.
The only issue with that I have is you're keeping now the best teams in the league off of the ice, right? For a longer period of time.
But oftentimes
you're not. TV.
Oftentimes there's, well, that's not necessarily true because Pittsburgh's a small market. They're often the best team in the league.
Right.
You know, Chicago is an awful team right now. They're not good. And they're in the, you know, having them is a good thing. So I think Toronto was horrendous for 15 years. 15 years.
No exaggeration
and
whatsoever.
But if we'd had them in, great for TV ratings. So I think the more teams you have in, the better. And you can survive without one of the major teams because if you have 4 teams that are waiting for the rest of the teams to catch up with them, you're going to have some major markets in there, right?
Right.
I'm in favor of a baseball or a NCAA tournament format where you have the last seed is played for in a single elimination game. I think that'd be a lot of fun. You make 8 and 9 in that little break between the regular season and the playoffs. You make 8 and 9, play a single elimination game 7 game, and you get the 8th seed for that spot. That'd be kind of fun.
What if you made 7 play 10,
yeah,
and 8 and 9 play each other?
Yeah, that's also an option. Yeah, that's what I was suggesting before. But either way, I think you experiment it, and this is the time you see if it works. And going forward, I'd love to see some of these leagues implement these little changes.
Steve doesn't like it.
I'm more into the reseeding part or going back to 1 to 8. The one little thing I've been thinking about recently, you know, the legitimacy of these playoffs or whatever. We've changed the playoff format a bunch of times. You know what I mean?
First round used to be 5 games.
Yeah, like it's not sacred. We didn't look at the first 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2 wild cards. We didn't look at that as an illegitimate cup. It's just the new way it is. And that was a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a decision they just sort of arbitrarily made. This is at very least, hey guys, we have a pandemic and we weren't able to completely finish the season. What should we do? Like this to me is even better than that. So it's a legitimate cup. Do I think they should keep the format going forward? Parts of
Let's play it first.
Yeah, let's play it first.
Like.
Yeah.
It's a great experiment.
Do you guys want offside reviews? Absolutely. After 1 year, take it back.
Exactly. Last question, Jesse.
What effects, this is from Mike P., what effects will the possible lowering of the 2021 salary cap have on the a potential lockout?
They're not going to lower it. So we already know that they're not. And there will not be a lockout because the players, believe it or not, are again at the disadvantage here because if they don't play, then the cap is guaranteed to go down, given what's happened this year. They're going to extend this collective bargaining agreement, I think, until, was it 2024?
2022.
Is that what it is?
I'm not sure.
So
I think it goes 3 years. I think it's 3 more years after 2021.
So
I think that's what it was. It was 7, and then there was an option to renegotiate or go 3 more years or something. Anyway, what's going to happen here is that they're going to find an agreement pretty quickly, and I would imagine it stays mostly the status quo. The real sticking point seems to be escrow and the Olympics. So maybe the NHL players get the Olympics and the owners get to keep escrow, which is, and that's, I mean, that's not fun for the players, but I think they can't lower the salary cap because it would put a bunch of teams in default about it. So that wouldn't make sense. But the reality is the NHL's lost billions and will continue. So we're lost millions, and they will continue to do so, like every major sports league, until they can get butts and seats. So they're going to have to work together on this. And unfortunately, it's billionaires fighting millionaires, and the billionaires are going to win. So that's on this one. That its reality is the guys who sign the checks are going to say, well, we can't run a league unless this happens. So
I don't think it benefits anyone not to play.
Yeah.
For that reason, I should say, if it's a health reason, sure, go for it. And as for the Olympics, we're not going to see the NHL in the Olympics until 2026. That's my prediction.
Yeah,
No,
I agree.
It would be better for China, though. It'd be a real boon if they were in there for China.
There may not be one. There may not be an Olympics.
Well, there may not be one. You're right. That's a good point too. Yeah. If we're not through this, who knows?
No, if you're still not able to go to like a game in person or a concert, they're not having an Olympics.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see in a year and a half.
Wasn't there supposed to be one this summer or something?
There was. They are postponed until next summer, I believe.
Where was that? Japan?
Tokyo. Yeah.
Tokyo, and they canceled it mad late.
Yeah, because they were like, "Oh no, we're going to continue." Nah.
Yeah.
But
you're not.
It would be kind of sick to have 2 Olympics within like 6 months of each other. I'm pretty excited about that.
Have them at the same time.
Summer and winter. Let's go.
Colossal Olympic Village. Everything's in text. Well, okay, we'll revisit the plan. We made some progress before that.
Yeah. Anyway, should be good. Jesse, is that all good?
Yeah, we can do more next episode. I still have plenty of questions.
So we will do that. We'll do an extended version next episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next Wednesday, and we will see you then.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness. Connection complete.